After 3 races in 2024, Lewis Hamilton finds himself in 10th place in the Drivers' Championship on a measly 8 points. Hamilton is on a bad run of results, with his last podium in Mexico City in 2023, beginning a run of 6 Grands Prix in which he has failed to finish higher than 7th, the worst run of his career. In the Australian Grand Prix, a rare Mercedes engine failure saw him retire after just 16 laps, the culmination of a wretched weekend in which he was knocked out in Q2 for his worst Albert Park grid spot since 2010. The 7-time world champion, who will leave Mercedes to join Ferrari at the end of this year, finished 7th and 9th in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, so is also statistically having his worst campaign after 3 events. Mercedes is a team struggling with its 3rd attempt at ground effect machinery, with the team still not quite understanding how to extract performance from the delicate balance that must be struck with the floor and underbody. This stems from the 2022 decision to go with the zero side pods concept, with the simulation figures the team was seeing providing outstanding figures and being duped into believing them, only to be exposed during preseason testing with porpoising. Toward the end of 2022, team principal Toto Wolff was bullish. The team would be backfiring in 2023 after identifying the problem with the floor. But again, the team missed the mark by doubling down on the flawed side pods concept for 2023. James Allison was at pains to point out after his return to the technical director role in spring 2023 that the zero side pods design was not the main problem with the car, instead that the architecture of the machine was more at fault, so becoming the defining image of the Mercedes downfall. The difficulty of the past 2 years, a consequence of a troublesome car to drive, meant no thought was given to signing off with a record 8th world championship for Hamilton, especially against the dominance of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. 2024 would instead be about making progress, and at least being more competitive than the previous 2 years. A solid haul of podiums, maybe a win here or there, would be a success. As Hamilton stood in the media pen in Melbourne on Sunday, keeping half an eye on the ongoing Australian Grand Prix, while explaining his early retirement, he was fully aware how differently things had turned out. He'd flown to the other side of the world to qualify 11th and complete 15 laps on race day. Hamilton has taken a podium in one of the first 3 races of the year in every season since his F1 debut in 2007, apart from 2009 when he had a disqualification, 6th and 7th, for McLaren. It's the worst start to a season I've ever had. It's worse than 2009. It's tough on the spirit for everyone in the team when so much work has been going on over the winter. You come in excited, driven, and motivated with the mindset you're going to be fighting for wins, then that's not the case. Then you think, okay, maybe 2nd or 3rd, and that's not the case, and it cascades a bit further down and you go through the motions. It's challenging. I continue to be inspired by the people I've worked with and continue to put in the effort and show up. That's the most important thing. It is accurate. 2009 has been largely regarded as a low point in Hamilton's early career, when McLaren lagged far behind the opposition. The start to that year yielded finishes of 6th and 7th after being disqualified from P3 in Australia. This year, after 3 races, he has a 7th, a 9th, and a DNF. The setbacks aren't specific to Hamilton. Teammate George Russell has been ahead in qualifying at all 3 races so far, but only has a P5 and P6 to his name after crashing on the penultimate lap while running 7th in Australia, at which point he was 50 seconds off Carlos Sainz's race-leading Ferrari. It's a huge margin, particularly after how closely matched the 2 teams were at the end of last year. Mercedes thought it was in Ferrari's ballpark at the season opener in Bahrain, only to be stymied by a cooling issue that cost both cars a considerable amount of time. After Sainz's win on Sunday, the gap looks gigantic. Toto Wolff admitted the start to this season had been brutally painful in light of the Australia result. No matter how optimistic he wanted to feel about the future, digesting neither car getting to the checkered flag was tough. I would be lying if I would say at any moment I feel positive about the situation and optimistic, but you just need to overcome the negative thoughts and say, we will turn this around. Today, it feels very, very brutal. After finishing in 2nd place in last year's Constructors' standings, the team now seem to have slipped further back in their bid to close the gap to Red Bull. Mercedes P4 in the constructors' standings currently, a full 71 points behind Red Bull after 3 races. We started this season in the belief that this car is better than it was last year. Then you look at last year in Australia where Leclerc crashed out and Sainz was 4th but relegated to outside of the top 10 because of the penalty, but on the road he was 4th. McLaren was 17th, 18th, 19th, and now they are 40 seconds ahead of us. Obviously, on one side, I want to punch myself on the nose. On the other side, it is also a testimony that when you get things right, you can turn it around pretty quickly, and we've just got to continue to believe. But at the moment, it's a very tough time. Wolff believes that the issue for the team is around understanding their car rather than organizational, meaning that he continues to believe he is the right person for the role of team principal. As a co-owner of this business, I need to make sure that my contribution is positive and creative. So I would be the first one to say, if somebody has a better idea, tell me. Because I'm interested to turn this team around as quickly as possible, and I'll happily give my input and see what that would be or who that could be. We have a physics problem, not a philosophical or organizational problem, because we haven't swallowed a dumb pill since 2021. It's just we don't understand some of the behaviors of the car that in the past we would have always understood. I look myself in the mirror every single day about everything I do, and if I believe that I should ask the manager question or the trainer question, I think it's a fair question, but it's not what I feel at the moment that I should do. With 21 races to go, Hamilton and Mercedes have plenty of opportunities to enjoy more success together. The challenge now is how they define that success and how much further they'll have to temper their aspirations for this swan song campaign. The more we race, the more we realize how down in the dumps Mercedes is, and the more we realize how correct Hamilton was to make a switch to Ferrari. Every passing weekend, we see Mercedes sink further into the pit they dug up for themselves by their interpretation of the 2022 regulations. The most concerning factor is that this is the 3rd year under unchanged regulations, and still the team back in Brackley is in the dark. They still can't pinpoint the problem areas and clearly solve them. This is exactly in a post-race interview. Hamilton couldn't help but laugh at his misery, proving to the experts on the F1 Checkered Flag podcast that Hamilton has written this year off and is already halfway to Ferrari. The Australian GP would have been extremely painful if Hamilton was tied down with a contract. Lucky for him, it'll be someone else's problem from next year, and he had a front row seat to his future team securing an incredible 1-2 in Albert Park. So, do you think Mercedes has what it takes to turn their fortune around in Suzuka? Let us know in the comments below.